So yeah, I played Marvel's Avengers and I played the Spider-Man DLC. And I don't think anyone's going to be surprised with what I have to say about it. So for those who don't know, if you own a PlayStation, you are lucky enough to get the free DLC update, which is Spider-Man as a playable character for Marvel's Avengers on the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. Firstly, I would not recommend it on the PlayStation 4 at all because the game still runs like garbage, taking 5 to 10 minutes to load in a 5-minute level. But with the PlayStation 5, it runs pretty smoothly, I have to say, a good 60, maybe 50 frames per second. I'm not sure if it's quite at 60, but you get Spider-Man, and unlike Black Panther, unlike Hawkeye, unlike Kate Bishop, there's no story there. They kind of just tacked it in, probably because it's only for the PlayStation, not the Xbox or PC. They didn't want to spend as much time on it as the previous free DLC characters. But nonetheless, the web header's here, and firstly, I'm not going to sit here and say the game doesn't look amazing. The game is pretty beautiful, it looks pretty fantastic, it runs well at 60 frames. Spider-Man looks pretty good, I have to say. The suit design that you see in the initial phase is okay, but they've made an iconic suit, which I do think looks pretty fantastic. A really, really good suit in terms of a generic Spider-Man design. Now, I'm obviously a big Spider-Man fan, for those who don't know, and on that, I can be a little bit biased. We've always got to address our predetermined bias whenever we look at things like this, and yeah, I'm not sure if that means that I'm either going to be overly critical or underly critical, because I've seen people who love Spider-Man do either or. And I think when I first turned on Spider-Man and I saw the little intro, it felt a little bit lazy, but then when I actually first had a hold of Spider-Man running around, I thought to myself, he plays pretty good. I'm actually enjoying moving around. I was doing the harm challenges first, because it's the first time I played this Avengers game in 6 months, and I was moving around and I thought, he feels okay. He kind of fights like Spider-Man, he's a little bit slow, but in a whole, it's okay. So Spider-Man plays as sort of like a stun character. He's definitely a support character. His emphasis is kind of just webbing up enemies and then using takedowns on them and just assisting the other players, and he's okay at it. That makes sense, that's kind of what he would do. And the only problem is, well, there's a few issues throughout the board. His webs look terrible. Some of the animations look really cool, and some just look garbage. The ones that were already there, so some of the movement ones, they all look pretty good. But the ones they've created just for Spider-Man, like the webbing, the web swinging, the web zips, they all don't look great. The web swinging obviously is a big one for everybody. They've been overly critical. I went in knowing it was not going to be the Insomniac Spider-Man at all. I knew that. I know people have been really overly critical of him, the fact that he just spins webs on anything. Yeah, it is what it is. It's not ideal, but a lot of the levels, like the Wasteland missions, you have to. Yeah, either you couldn't spin his webs or you'd have to spin them on nothing. So that was my major critique of Avengers anyway, was the fact that Thor and Iron Man literally fly around at 10 miles an hour. And it's exactly the same as Spider-Man. There's just no momentum in his movements at all. His combat is okay, it feels generic, it feels kind of like Spider-Man, but also kind of like you're just playing as any of the other Avengers in the game. Look, at the end of the day, Spider-Man's a cool little skin. I'm a big fan of Spider-Man. I enjoyed my time, sort of, for the first 20 minutes. But after that, after I jumped in, I played 4 missions with Spider-Man. That is all. And for me, it just doesn't matter who they bring in. It doesn't matter which characters they bring in. They cannot save the terrible game that is Marvel's Avengers. It's just the gameplay loop, and the enemy design is just abysmal, and it's just not fun to play. That's ultimately the problem with Marvel's Avengers. Yes, the looter shooter stuff, the pay to win stuff, they're all not great. They're not great models, not great practices adopted by Square Enix and Crystal Dynamics, but if the gameplay was winning, then it kind of maybe could save it, but it's just really not. It's just so boring and basic, and just every enemy just takes so long to defeat, and it just doesn't work. It's not fun. The Synthoid enemies are just not fun opponents. It just, all in all, is just so underwhelming. And as soon as I was back in, after the harm mission I actually did at first level, I just remember thinking to myself, yeah, this game is still a steaming pile of garbage. And it made me ask myself the question, who is this game even for? Because I am a die-hard gamer to the point where I've actually got a YouTube channel about it. I'm also a die-hard nerd. I'm a die-hard Marvel fan. I have Spider-Man stuff coming out of my ears, and I have Marvel stuff coming out of my ears, and I hate this game. I really, really hate this game, and I think from a gaming perspective, it's a bad game. There's nothing good about the game. Massive loading times, really generic, boring enemies, boring combat, boring mission structure, boring story. The combat, in its defense, each character actually plays well. The combat from the side of you controlling the character plays well. But the problem is, the opposition you're always fighting are just so underwhelming, so generic, and the fact that they've balanced every single Marvel character in the game to play kind of the same strength level, it just doesn't make sense. It just ruins the immersion of playing as superheroes when, that Black Widow's pistol is as powerful as a Hulk's punch. It kind of just completely destroys any sort of immersion you can have in this superhero world. It's clearly not for Marvel fans because Marvel fans don't want to watch or don't want to play their favourite characters in this poorly executed mess of a game. So the only conclusion I can come to with this game is that, and with the Spider-Man DLC, all the DLC going forward, is this game is purely made for children. It is purely made for children who want to play a free-to-play model, who don't understand what makes a good game and just want to play their superheroes, their favourite heroes of all time, doing anything. And that's kind of the only people I can see having a lot of fun playing this game for longer than 5-6 hours at a push. And I think this game, the only way it's going to stay alive is if they keep it and they adopt the free-to-play model. And that's clearly what they want to do anyway, but they wanted us all to pay the price as well. So for those people like myself who paid £60 for this game, yeah, it's a spit in the face without a doubt. But also the fact that it should have just been free-to-play at launch. It came unfinished, it came unpolished, and really it was a free-to-play game anyway. And I feel like, yeah, it just backhanded everyone who actually bought the game. So am I going to be playing Marvel's Avengers anymore? I'm not going to say never. I might give it another try, you know, in a year's time if there's another 4 characters. But I think next year is going to be the last year for Marvel's Avengers. It'll be make or break as to whether or not they can support it by keep creating more characters. But as I've said, for me, the main core issues come with the fact that the gameplay loop is just not fun. The loading times are too much on previous gen consoles, and the fact that the enemy design is probably some of the worst enemy design from an actual combat game I've ever faced. And on that, I'm going to wrap the video up. It's not been the most cheeriest video, I have to say, but you know, I want to put my opinion out there because, you know, a lot of people who do actually follow me know I love Spider-Man, and I know you would want to hear my thoughts. And surprisingly, it's probably no different to actually what you thought I was going to say. Marvel's Avengers is still a terrible game. Probably one of the worst AAA games I've ever bought in my entire life, if I'm being honest with you. Which is a crying shame because I love Marvel's, and it's the best IP in existence in my opinion. It could be anything. And Guardians of the Galaxy, Marvel's Spider-Man have shown that taking these amazing IPs, you can literally make games that people will play and never ever forget. Then you have Avengers come out and it's literally the most forgettable, generic, boring game in existence. On that, do not forget to like and subscribe. As you know, this is a little bit different from my trophy hunting content. Usually, if you're new to the channel, I normally just cover trophy hunting stuff, but I want to put my opinion out there for the tinted web to see. And on that, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Take it easy.